Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
This is the Page Publishing Book Club. Good evening. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, along with Rob Barrett's my engineer, and another stunning group of authors who are here to share the process they went through to get their first books published. What's not so surprising is how many people draw on their own life experience and write what they know best. Others draw on their creative energy, and most will tell you, once they start, they can't stop. Stephen Einstein is our first author tonight. He had an experience most of us will never have. His uncle is Albert Einstein. Yeah, the famous physicist who developed the theory of relativity. And there are quite a few things the world didn't know about Albert Einstein. The name of his book, My Uncle Albert, 5 Years of Discovery. We are talking to Albert Einstein's nephew. Pretty impressive.
You don't have to be impressed. I'm a 5'5" white boy. I'm very regular, Alice. I'm very down to earth. I'm a first-time author, published author. Very excited about the book. It took 60-some-odd years to write it.
60 years?
Before my Uncle Albert, I spent 5 years with him, from 5 years old to 10 years old. Now, the way the book came about actually is twofold. First, it took almost 6 years for my mentor, my manager, Sid Gordon. It took him 5.5 years to convince me to write it. And the reason I did not write it was, one, there was family still alive, and I could not in any way want to disrespect anybody in the family. And 60-some-odd years had gone by. Now, all Uncle had me promise him at the pond, as I say in the book, every Sunday we used to go to the pond and see the ducks. And as long as he was gone after 1955, I could tell the world what the world doesn't know about him. He was my uncle, and I knew him better than anybody in the world. And I reveal secrets. It's a one-time book, never to be repeated. And the second reason was, when I was 4.5 years old, my father's goons, 5 of them, broke down the door and kidnapped me from my mother's arms and a man named Jess Witzel, who eventually married my mom. And I didn't see my mother for 13 years, or Greta and Doris, my sisters, or Jess, who had married my mother. I was a prisoner by my father. I lived underground, wet, dirty, and I'd be brought up every day to do chores like wash toilets, garbage cans, any menial things that he could think of. He owned a very big restaurant named Alfred's Restaurant on Route 9 between Glens Falls and Lake George. Now, my father was a monster who was bipolar like my Uncle Albert was, and of course, I'm bipolar too, only I take my medicines. And one day my dad was in a very good mood. He was lucid. He invited me for dinner in the restaurant, and I went in, and I was totally shocked. There was Joseph, my friend, my bodyguard. He wanted me to meet his half-brother, Albert, who is very famous, Albert Einstein, and he felt that I could learn an awful lot from him. Well, little did he know that I learned a lot more than he could ever realize, because my Uncle Albert taught me things that I practice today that had nothing to do with space or black holes or theoretical physics, everyday life. We go forward 60-some-odd years. He died in 1955, and everybody has passed on, and I felt after 6 years of prodding me, Sid Gordon made some good points, and he wanted me to lead off in the world with this book that I named My Uncle Albert, 5 Years of Discovery. 5 years I lived with him, because Sid thought it would be very cathartic for me, and number two, it'd be a great way to lead off in the world of being a published author. And I just happened to be the last male Einstein on Earth. Now, the book reveals many things that the world doesn't know about my uncle. My uncle was a down-to-earth, very loving to me, a teacher, a man of tremendous codes of ethics, and at the same time, Uncle was outrageous, totally outrageous man. Outrageous in a good way. I mean, he didn't care what color socks he wore. They were socks. It could be one black, one red. He didn't care. And the book is humorous. The book is truth that will be discussed and has been discussed literally for 1,000 years. Only I bring out the truth in such a way in the 5th year that will be discussed around the world.
All right. Looking forward to that discussion. Colleen Remmers wrote Be Happy, Evie Bear. And this children's book turned out to be something way beyond her imagination. Now, Colleen, you wrote this because you were having some issues with your 4-year-old, right?
Oh, yeah. We were having trouble getting daily tasks done, like brushing teeth and, choosing outfits and getting her hair done. So I had to figure out a different way that worked for her, that she liked and enjoyed. And so I wrote the book, and it originally was just for her. I drew the pictures, she helped me color them, and then a couple of my friends had read the book and loved it for their kids, so I just kind of went to town with it.
How did you help her overcome these difficulties she was having?
I just recognized that we were butting heads, and she's very much like me in the sense of I am beyond stubborn, so it's either my way or no one else's way. And so I just, I reverted to what my mom taught me when I was little of, nobody learns the same, and nobody does the things that you do the same way you do it. Everybody thinks differently. And so at the moment, she was very enthralled in coloring and reading, and I do a lot of painting too, so she's very into that. So I figured if I wrote something out that involved her so she could relate to it, and I just kind of just did it by chance, and she ended up really relating to it and just absolutely loves it. And everything that we do now, we kind of just put like a different spin on it for her to be able to make her own decision of getting that task done. So what we would do is I would turn something into like making a song for cleaning up, or humming while we brush our teeth, or giving her options. Like when we were to go do her hair, I'd pull out a headband or some spray and like some hair clips and everything. So giving her options, like getting dressed too. I'd pick out a bunch of outfits, and then hey, do you want to choose which one? And that way it didn't take us an hour to get her dressed, or
I do know. I know exactly what you're talking about. So that's a very creative way. So you decided, all right, I'll write this book for my daughter. And then what made you publish it then?
I've always wanted to write, and I've done this for quite a while, but I had a really bad day at work, and I was just like, you know what, screw it. I don't care if I get rejected or whatever. I am going to just start submitting my manuscripts. And then I found Page Publishing, and they were a lifesaver. They've been nothing but just awesome. And it happened, and I'm still so beyond shocked. Like, I can't believe it.
You can't believe that you're an author?
No, I can't even wrap my mind around it.
Now, your friends are buying your book, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. And my boss, because I work with Costco right now, he has worked his butt off getting my book into that local Costco store, and he just bought 300 books.
He did?
Yep, and we set up a book signing. Like, I can't even talk. I get so, like, I can't. Yeah, it's way too exciting and so unreal.
But Colleen, you know what? For first-time authors who are listening to you, it can happen. You're proof it can happen. Somebody bought 300 copies of your book. That's amazing.
Right? I can't, yeah.
Are you going to keep writing?
Oh yeah, totally. I have another manuscript I submitted with Page Publishing, and they accepted it too. So I was just waiting till I got this one on its feet and out there before I pursued the second one. And I just hope that I can actually make this my career. It would be a dream come true, that's for sure.
All right, Colleen, don't stop now. Glenn Eason is an ex-cop from Canada, and he decided as he approached retirement that he'd write a book based on his career called Reverse Onus. What's your story, Glenn?
It's a police murder mystery going back to my policing career from the 70s and 80s. Some funny and some sad stories, but certainly developed into more than what I had anticipated. There was a storyline that developed, and I pursued that. Ended up with a nice hook in the story, and it's a mystery, love story. There's high finance. There is an amazing twist at the end, so hope it appeals to a large group of people. It's fictionalized fact is what I want to call it. Some of the stories are things that happen, but there's no way they're not traceable back. I changed them so much and changed the characters so much that you might have an incident that was similar to something that happened, but it is all factual or fictional.
I find your title interesting, Reverse Onus. What does that mean?
Reverse onus is, as we all know, that the burden of responsibility or the onus is on the prosecution in a criminal case of the Crown Attorney or the District Attorney to prove a set of facts beyond a reasonable doubt. But a reverse onus is when the burden is shifted to the accused person to prove something, which goes back to old common law and habeas corpus right of the accused person to be released from custody and awaiting trial, because a person, of course, is innocent until proven guilty. However, when the charge is really the most serious nature, then the court needs more than just a promise of the accused will appear and answer to the charges. It's common under these circumstances for the person to be kept in custody until the trial, but the burden of the onus shifts to the accused to convince the court that he's not a flight risk, and that's a reverse onus.
Okay, so this all ties in with your main characters and what happens in your book.
That's correct.
And this was your first book?
Yes, it is.
How was that experience for you?
It was really interesting. Didn't start off, as I said, to write a book, but it developed as I went through the process, and found it to be very rewarding. The whole act of writing to develop the characters, that was very interesting. I hadn't done anything like that before. Try and get into the head of all of the different characters, develop personalities. I found that to be challenging, but it was very rewarding as well. So I hope that police officers from from around North America, from around the world, if they read it, then they're certainly going to get something out of it, and passing it on to their partners, husbands, wives, whatever. Police officers certainly are notorious for not sharing what goes on in their careers with their. This would give a tremendous insight to the partners as well. But police officers are certainly going to see a great deal of themselves, see a great deal of what they do daily in the book, as well as love story angle is hopefully going to appeal to a real wide audience.
All right, thanks, Glenn. We are going to take a quick break. Coming up, books inspired by American history, a trip to the library, and a rodent. Stay with us.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books, and unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them, and they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, illustration, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. Our next author, Christine Davidson, has always been a writer. She just needed a little time to put it all together. Right, Christine?
Actually started wanting to write the children's books many, many years ago when my children were small. And actually the story came out of a trip to the library with my kids. And it was just basically to encourage reading, picking out books for her and her brother, both. Coming home from school, encouraging reading. Let's take a trip to the library. Went to the library, checked out books, and pretty much headed home to get dinner ready and prepared and ready for the next day. This particular one I wrote when they were younger, and it just kind of sat there, and just with a busy life, things kind of slowing down a bit, being older and having grandchildren now, and just want to really encourage reading for them. And they get excited, when I read stories to them, and we just fill our home with reading and books and for the grandkids. And so I thought, I don't know, years ago I really wanted to do it, but just didn't have the know-how, never had a chance to really check into it. So I started pursuing it later now.
Are you going to keep writing?
Oh, I have actually 9 other books that have been written. It's a series of Michelle and Joey growing up, and I have 10. I'm just pretty much waiting for my daughter to illustrate, because she illustrated these particular pictures, and I wanted the story, for us to do it together. So she's the illustrator now, and I'm the author, and I have 9 other books just kind of waiting around. Fun-wise, money-wise, it takes a lot to publish a book.
Yeah, it does. It really does. What's your hope for this book?
My hopes and my dreams and desires is to get them throughout the elementary school levels. I work in an elementary school as well. So it's kind of like you have to differ between, your job and trying to get it promoted through the school system. So it's kind of, you have to just be very careful putting work between trying to be an author and also working in the system as well. But my hopes is to get it promoted in the school libraries as well as the public library.
What do you do for the school?
I'm a teacher assistant.
That's great. You should ask them if
Yeah.
you can read the book to the little ones.
Exactly. I'm already, going that step. It feels great. It just feels great. It's just one of those dreams I've had for a really long time, and I'm really kind of like, is this really possible? In the beginning stages, it is very, very difficult, but I'm going to punch through it and see through it and get it going.
All right, 1 book down, 9 to go. That's pretty ambitious. Brenda Edmonds also wrote a children's book inspired by a rodent. It's called Guess Who? Tell me more, Brenda.
It's about friends. They were getting together, and they could hear something like moving around on the floor and stuff, but they couldn't really figure out what was going on. And finally, at the end, they found out it was a mouse that was crawling around their feet and everything.
So the mouse was the Guess Who?
Yes. Uh-huh.
What's the point of the book?
They were all trying to figure out what was going on, what was happening, and they couldn't really figure it out. So the Guess Who was? It was a mouse.
Your whole book is about trying to figure out.
Yeah, it was suspense. What is this? I'm going on. I feel something, but they could never see it. It's more like a suspense type of movie. A book.
So what kinds of things did the mouse do?
It was just like crawling on the floor, on the bookcase, and then crawling all around them. And every time they would look around, they couldn't see what was going on because the mouse just was so fast that they couldn't really catch it or see exactly what it was.
Why did you write this book?
I wrote it because I had a problem with the mouse in my house, really. And, it kind of inspired me to write the book because I knew there was something going on, but I could never catch anything or see anything, So it was like a little suspense for me as well because I thought maybe it could be a mouse, but I could never see it.
How did you finally catch it?
I had to put something down to catch it eventually. And then I wanted, I felt like it was something that kids would really enjoy too, because kids love animals and things like that. And I felt like they would really get a kick out of reading something like that because they would be thinking, oh, what is it? What is it? And they would be trying to figure out what it is,
Have you had kids read the book?
Yes, and they enjoyed it. That was my first book, and I plan on writing another one.
So the mouse really worked out for you, Brenda.
Yes.
It was your inspiration.
Yes. When people read it or talk to me about it, they say, oh, really, this is a great accomplishment, So I still kind of, like, really, did I really write a book and get it published? That type of thing. But I feel good about it.
All right. Thank you, Brenda. Finally, Justin Bailey took pieces of American history and built an entire fictional story around some of the most significant events of our time. His book is called The Committee. So, Justin, who is the committee?
The committee is the committee that puts presidents in power, controls things, runs the government behind the scenes. They select the President of the United States, the congressmen, the senators, and they have an agenda. And it was started by the Founding Fathers for the right reasons at the time of the Constitutional Convention, when they realized that they couldn't trust the American people to pick presidents who would feel the way they do about the freedoms that they fought and died for. And they put the very thing in motion they feared the most. Because the Founding Fathers started the committee for the right reasons. Benjamin Franklin made a very famous speech in which he said, those of us in this room know the price and sacrifice in blood we paid to bring the nation forth. The generation that follows us will be directly reminded by us of that cost and sacrifice. However, my greatest fear is we move further and further from this time with each successive generation until the people become so corrupt that only a corrupt government will work. So I take that and I run with it. That's when they realize that they won't be able to trust their own citizens to pick the leaders that the nation will need in years to come. So they choose to implement their will by choosing who those leaders would be. And it works great in the beginning. The only thing they forgot is that they were going to die and that they began to pick their successors on the committee. And that's how the whole thing started. So what I've done is I've taken that, and then I begin to move it through history. Events that take place, like the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, begin to change the committee. They realized all of a sudden he's been assassinated. We've only been picking the president. Look where we are. We've got a Southerner, a man from Tennessee who stayed with the Union, but he can't do what Lincoln would do. We screwed up. We've got to start picking the vice presidents. And that began really to start the whole chain of events. So the book starts off with the election of the president. The opening line is him taking the oath of office. He steps into the Oval Office for the first time, where there's a gentleman sitting at his desk, and it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, who tells him, we put you in this office. Everything that you've done was selected for you. Your college, the job you had after college was selected for you. Even your wife was approved by the committee.
Ooh. What drove you to do this?
A lot of the things that we're seeing happening in the world and in politics, the conspiracy theories, a lot of these things I just don't believe are an accident.
You're saying that some things have happened you find hard to believe, and so this is a way to explain it.
Yes. What makes it so unique is the things that I put in the book have really happened, and I'm very true to the history of that, except where I've taken the liberties with the backstory.
All right, Justin, I give you a lot of credit. You did a lot of research on that one. So what do you think? You heard some of the inspiration our authors drew on tonight. I mean, Brenda took a mouse and made a story out of it. You know, if you really want to write, it's in you. And sometimes we try so hard to think about what to write that we don't even realize it's right in front of us. You know, can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. You know, it's great when it's obvious, like our first author, Stephen Einstein, but even he didn't write his story about his famous Uncle Albert till decades later. And then you have Christine Davidson, who remembered how much her kids loved going to the library and wrote a simple children's book about how much her kids loved going to the library. So, you know, hopefully you found a little inspiration here tonight. And if not, we've got a whole new crop of authors coming back next week. Right, Rob? So come back next week. And if you hear the Mets, we've just been postponed. All right? We will return. We're not going anywhere. We are not leaving you. You can count on us. Right, Rob? All right. We are just about out of time, but we'll be back next week. Same time, same place, 710 WOR. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend and get writing.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything. Copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.